me, as I've built a business in this industry and started to become passionate about it, to where I catch myself walking through like a clothing store and picking up a sock and like looking at it, looking at the fibers and looking at the composition of it, and then I go, who the hell have I become? Like this isn't stuff that innately interests me, but because I'm so exposed to it, because day and night I'm trying to compete in this world, all of a sudden you start to develop a little bit of passion for it.
Yeah.
And then a little more, and then you look at yourself and you're like, what have I become? But it really doesn't matter. At that point, you want to win.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Hustle Up podcast. My name is Clint.
And I'm Jonathan.
And today we have a treat. We got Zach Zelner here joining us in the Hustle studio.
Yeah.
Zach, how are you tonight, man?
I'm doing well. I arrived, 30 minutes late, so
you're good.
I'm feeling guilty.
Tell people where you're coming from.
Where, just now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at a YPO dinner. So YPO, Young Presidents Organization. It's something that I'm looking to join. In fact, I've wanted to join since I was like 18, 19 years old.
What is it?
So it's a group, and it's worldwide. They have, it's tens of thousands of members. I don't know exactly how many, but they have chapters in a lot of different cities. But the requirements vary a little bit, city to city. But, long story short, you need, like at least in Atlanta, you need $13 million of revenue. And so the group is capped at age 45. So it's exclusively a group of people that are under 45 that have built businesses or are executives in companies, C-suite, that are doing at least $13 million. And with that being the baseline, the average is much, much, much higher. Something I always wanted to join. And so I was at like a little, new member prospecting.
Let's go.
Dinner.
Getting recruited.
We'll see if they like me. We'll see.
That's what's up. Are you from the Atlanta area?
I'm not, man. I was born in Brooklyn.
Oh, nice. My dad was too.
No kidding.
Yeah, he went to James Madison High School.
Okay, yeah. I know a lot of people went to James Madison. I was out of there before I was old enough to go to high school. But,
okay.
We moved to South Florida when I was 9, and then spent some years in South Florida, then Boston, some time in LA, and I moved to Atlanta 5 years ago when a company that I was running at the time was raising venture capital. And our investors really wanted us the hell out of Tallahassee, Florida, where we had started. So they said, pick a major city and go compete there. And the choices were essentially Atlanta and Miami. And I knew that Miami would just be dangerous.
Yeah.
So we chose Atlanta. Sight unseen. I'd never been
didn't
here.
know was that Atlanta might also be dangerous.
Atlanta's dangerous.
But in a different
way. I've lost some car windows, but that's a cost of doing business here in the ATL. That's all right. I still love the city.
Call that a driving tax.
That's right. That's right.
How old are you?
I'm 26 now.
26. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. What when you started your first company, you were in what state?
I think I was 17. I had recently dropped out of high school.
You dropped out of high school?
I did,
GED,
yeah. Well,
did you go back?
No, so here's actually kind of technically what it is. I finished my credits my junior year and then just never came back. Now, I never filed what was like, this is some form. It's like an intent to graduate. It's like, hello, graduate me, signature here, that kind of thing. I never did that. So, I think I can go back and get the diploma, but it hasn't really been a
unofficial high school dropout.
Yeah.
Doing way more than $13 million in revenue a year.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
Isn't that how it goes?
We're doing well, man. It hasn't always been that way, right? And I think that's sort of the important thing. A lot of people like to look at where things are today, not understanding the incredible amount of like turmoil that it took to get to this point. I always sort of think about the fact that like, for all those years, for about 7 years, I dated the same girl. And so she saw me, like getting hand-me-down clothes from her father, right? Or like having her buy me Chipotle. And now a lot of people look at where things are today, and I have the plane and the cars and all this other stuff, but that's not what it's always been. And in fact, for so many years, it was really a question of like, will it always be this way?
Yeah.
You guys know it's like it's this incredibly iterative step-by-step process, and if very often it's 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, 6 steps back, and you look at it, you're like, man, what the is going on here? So it's super easy to sit around and kind of present all of the beauty of everything, not appreciating how difficult it was to get to this stage.
And just in a test of mindset, because I like what you said, it is often 3 steps forward to take 5, 6, 7, 20 steps back.
Oh, yeah.
But then it goes back to that Rocky quote. It's not about how hard you get. It's about how many times you get hit and keep going. So then those 20 steps can end up being 50 steps forward if you shape it the right way. Just like marketing, mindset's the same thing. It's about messaging, except it's internal dialogue versus external messaging, I guess, would be you see what I'm saying?
No, you're completely right.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing too is like, for young people especially, and I remember saying this, I'm guilty of this. I used to go and say, man, if I could just do what I'm doing now with 5 or 10 more years of experience, I would just be crushing it. But the problem is we need to go collect that 5 and 10 years of experience or 20 years of experience or what have you. And so it's easy to sit around at, 15 or 20 or 25 years old and go, man, like what am I supposed to do? How do I even start building anything? Right. But without understanding that everybody started from that point. Right. I mean, there's some varying degrees, but the truth is that I'm actually a really big believer in the organic kind of market, dynamics of how things happen in terms of like, people who raise these huge rounds of funding often go broke horribly. And people who build businesses starting from nothing are often very, very successful. Yeah. And so there's this misconception where, things are unfair. There are people who have unfair advantages and nepotism and this, that, and the other. I get that. However, a lot of the struggle is in and of itself the blessing that you have that either can serve to propel you forward or serve to hold you back.
I'd go as far as to call it maybe even the purpose. The car, the jet, the trappings of success aren't necessarily what it's all about, but who you are making yourself into through the process, through the struggle. And then you've got those lessons you can take forever. Whatever the next company is. We focus on mindset, business, fitness, and relationships. And it sounds like you got started pretty early. How, why, who were your major influences?
The why is probably the most important. There are 2 components. One, I really don't like being broke. And nobody does. No, nobody does. Like I get that. But it sort of goes a step beyond that of like, it is hard for me to rest easy, not being in a position where I feel safe and comfortable and feel like I have at least enough that I can go. Like I'm only just very barely starting to be able to sit a little more comfortably. And that at times impacted my work. It doesn't these days. But what I really wanted was that security and stability and knowing that like, I remember I was 18 years old and my car got towed and it was $88. It was in Tallahassee, Florida, and it was $88. And I remember I had $89. And the thought that like something as simple as my car getting towed would like wipe out my bank account was just such a like unbelievably traumatic place to be, where you go, my God, the difference between like me eating or not eating is me parking in the wrong spot. Like that's, that's such a crazy thing.
That's wild because on a macro, there's that statistic where it's like 85% plus of the United States is one medical bill away from bankruptcy. Yeah. And as a person, but especially, I read a lot of books and, as a man, being a man, it is imperative that we build and provide an infrastructure for, the nurturing of offspring and all of that. And you can't do that without the one means of economic survival on the planet, which is money.
That's exactly right. I mean, forget even money for a second. Just value. Creating value returns it back to you, right? I mean, whatever currency you want to operate in, it doesn't really matter. If you're somebody who is incredibly adept at connecting people and creating opportunities for other people, you yourself will have a wealth of opportunities. And whether that presents itself in terms of money directly or exclusively doesn't really matter. You're going to be well taken care of because you're somebody who provides so much back to the world. Right. And that's really kind of the focus with all of that. But I want to be clear, if we get back to the grassroots of it all, there's no initial way that you know how to provide value, right? Especially like a young age, you don't know anything. And you're not good at anything
yet. Blueprint, right?
Yeah, and also even the things that you're like kind of relatively good at, no matter how talented you are, there's somebody who's been doing it for decades who is like better at better at it than you, and that's fine. That's kind of part of what it takes, and that's how it should be, right? Because if anyone could just pop up and do everything amazing, then this would be a very weird kind of upside down society. But the whole purpose is to get in and start trying your hand at all of these different things that either interest you or are valuable enough pursuits. For me, like I started my first business in really like when I was 17 and I was trying to build websites, and I started a company called Mega Hit Media, and where I'll make your business a mega hit. I didn't know anything about anything, but the idea was like, let me try and do something right, because people didn't know how to make Facebook pages at the time or Twitter pages and build websites and anything like that. I didn't know anything about it, but like there's YouTube University. Even in 2010, there was that. More so now than ever. But like I sold somebody on the job, And I remember it was $1,500, which at the time, got me more excited.
Yeah. How old are you at that time?
I was 17. I
Yeah.
was 17, which I remember thinking at the time that was 3 iPhones.
Right.
Which when I was 5, I remember it was the 4S, and it was like 3 iPhones. And then I had to figure out how to do it, right? So, that's sort of that process of like, okay, there's deal 1. And I remember also thinking that if I did 200 more of those, I could buy, don't skewer me here.
You're
But
18.
yeah, if I could get 200 more of those, just about
Yeah.
one every work day, I could get a Lamborghini. I didn't calculate taxes. I didn't really consider that nobody would ever insure me at that point, but neither here nor there. That was sort of the math. And I never was able to sell a website a day, but the thought of that, it was like, this is an opportunity to have a different life than the one I have now. And so when we talk about the why, right, I really hate being broke because you're vulnerable. It's more than anything else. You're vulnerable. There are a lot of things that can happen in my life now that I can pay the bill for, and that's just a fact. I had a situation in my house, and I accidentally flooded the house, and then 48 hours it was handled. It cost me a little bit of money, but it was handled. It was over. It was done. It didn't mess my life up.
So now that you've reached a place of more comfortability, how has your why developed or changed to where you're not so worried about being broke anymore?
Yeah.
What is pushing you now?
There's still there's some element of that. One thing I'll say is that I need to be more than 1 or 2 mistakes away from failure, right? I like to be 5 or 10 mistakes away to where I know that if I make a few bad moves or I have a few bad years, right? If COVID affects me negatively, whatever, I don't lose my ass. But my why is different in that I've started to now really lean into my purpose because I've been doing a thing, which is being in the direct consumer apparel space, and now even just deeper in apparel printing manufacturing for years. Right, I don't know if you've read Grit by Angela Duckworth, but it's an incredible book. But what she really talks about there is it's not about passion, right? All these people, passion is temporary; it's a fleeting emotion.
It's like a motivation.
Yeah, passion is something you get from getting riled up from a speaker. Passion is what you get laying in bed at 2 a.m. I'm going to change. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. Grit is you doing all the work when you don't want to change,
Right.
and when you're not excited about something. And quite frankly, there's not yet one business idea that I've heard that can't make money, that can't make millions. In fact, that can't make tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. Billions of dollars is another story, but let's not even go there. You can become a multimillionaire selling comic books. Okay, period.
Right.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
You could do that reviewing comic books on YouTube.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Look, you can make $30 million a year playing with toys, as the one kid demonstrated to us. And
That's
granted, that's an
insane.
anomaly. I know, but that's not the point. There's so many other people who excel at their craft in so many different capacities, and so for me, the why has stemmed from now taking great pleasure in a space that I didn't care about. And this is what's really important, y'all. My first business was websites and social media marketing and stuff. Then I got into cookies. Then I got into tech. Then it was cannabis. Then it was printing dogs on socks. And I'm not a huge weed guy. I'm not a massive pet guy. Look, I love pets. That's great. We give
You've got to have a pet, right?
I don't. I don't. It's a lot of work.
Question real quick. Were all those ventures by your measure successful?
None of them were successful.
Okay.
They're still not successful. They all made
Okay,
money.
that's
but
fair.
I guess, that's the real question. Look, I built them and I sold them, and I'm proud of where they sat in my life. But, I guess that's kind of an important thing. Building a business that makes money isn't necessarily the definition of success.
Right.
And what I mean by that is they weren't lasting enterprises. One of them is still around and became a lot more successful once I sold it. But I was in it for a year. I made some money. None of them really embodied any of what I was truly capable of building and representing because I was a kid. In certain respects, I'm still only now just kind of moving out of that phase of my life. And it's not that I didn't take it seriously, but it was that I didn't even know how it's Donald Rumsfeld. It's the unknown unknowns, right? There's so many things that you don't even know you don't know.
Right.
Right. And so you think you know everything because you have all these known knowns and maybe these known unknowns. You're like, I don't know about that, but at least I know I don't know about it. There's a lot of things you don't even know you don't know.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of a joy, though, to explore those and find new things you didn't know about? Even when they're challenges, I like to think about it from exactly what you were saying, an opportunity to exercise that grit or to make yourself hard through doing things that you don't necessarily want to do.
Which brings us to my why now. And I mean, that's actually such a beautiful transition, because that's what has sort of changed in my life, where for many years it was a means to an end. I really thought, and I kind of always told myself, I was like, when I make $100,000 a year, passively, I'll retire. When I make 500, then when I make $1 million, right? And the number keeps climbing.
It's because there is no number.
Because there's no number.
Yeah.
It's not about the number. No,
The fuck are you gonna do sitting around?
No, hold on. Hold on. I still have this incredibly misguided belief that there's a number for certain components, right? And I'll even wind that back. I don't know how misguided it is. Look, there's a number where you know that you are comfortable no matter what.
Dial back numbers.
There's a number, okay? But on the same token, that number continues to change for me. So, we'll talk when I get there. But from people that I know who have, really close ties to my life, and who have gotten to the 9 or even 10 figures. One of my closest friends is a billionaire, and for him, he's kind of always told me, like, the number is $25 million. That's his number. And once he kind of got there, he really started to understand and could look beyond. But look, these are all crazy numbers.
It's subjective. 25 million for him might be 500 for somebody else.
Correct. Yeah.
Jeff Bezos still figuring it out.
Well, but he's not doing it for money, and so that I think that's the point of the why. Like, Jeff really is not working for the money.
Yeah.
All right. He's absolutely not there for that reason. And so for me, as I've built a business in this industry and started to become passionate about it, to where, like, I catch myself walking through, like, a clothing store and picking up a sock and, like, looking at it, looking at the fibers and looking at the composition of it, and then I go, who the hell have I become? Like, this isn't stuff that innately interests me, but because I'm so exposed to it, because day and night I'm trying to compete in this world, all of a sudden you start to develop a little bit of passion for it.
Yeah.
And then a little more, and then you look at yourself and you're like, what have I become? But it really doesn't matter. At that point, you want to win. And at that point, too, you start to realize, you start to kind of come into your power a little bit. And I think that's the most important thing. It's having that patience and that focus to get there, right? A lot of people quit before they get there because they're bad at it, right? I mean, like, it's super helpful when you start playing a sport when you're a little kid, because you don't have that ego in your mind that when you're terrible at it causes you to stop. All right, how many things as adults do we just, that's not for me, that's not a thing that I do, because we're not good at it. And we're really bad at being bad at things. Right, in general, right?
Yeah.
It's such an unpleasant experience to be uncomfortable. So most people, as they build businesses and get involved in all these kinds of pursuits, are terrible at it, and as a result, quit along the way, not understanding that everyone was terrible at some stage. And in fact, business is this equalizer in certain respects, because you can only get so good at business when you're a kid, right? Like, there are kids that start playing, like, basketball at 4 years old, and now they're 22 and they're dunking on me, and I'm going, like, well, there's only so much I can do. But in business, like, there's a limited head start that you can get. Like, your dad can kind of get you involved and bring you to the boardroom if you're lucky, in that respect, and have those kinds of opportunities. But people who don't, it's not that much of an advantage.
Well, it comes back to the point you made about venture capital. If you don't have DIY opportunities and you're not out there learning and doing it yourself, and you're just giving money or giving resources away, it's kind of like, my dad never bought me a car because I would never treat it the same way as if I bought my own car. Yeah. And it's the same with skills and trades.
Your dad could have bought you a car.
He could have.
Yeah.
He could have,
Yeah.
but he didn't. And it's really, I've learned, like, YouTube University, working with the right team members and knowing how to work with them and doing it at a low cost, high velocity of work manner that doesn't give you the opportunity to just blow money when you get it and hire people for things that you could figure out yourself.
I'm going to talk a little bit about this on Tuesday, but there's the idea that you don't have to own a business to think entrepreneurially.
Bingo.
And you don't have to be wildly successful, and you don't have to have all, that cookie cutter Instagram life in order to engage in daily micro actions that entrepreneurs might.
Yep.
Challenging yourself, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. Let's talk about the pilot's license. When did you decide to do that? How long did it take?
Exactly a year ago. In fact, it might even be to the week a year ago.
So pilot's license and jet all in 365 days.
Yeah, less.
And you got that probably 6 months ago?
What, the plane?
No, the license.
The license? It's been 10 months now.
10 months.
Yeah, but I started it, started a year ago, and I was in a cabin last year, and I think I'll tell you what, that pilot's license really changed my life because it's one of those things where it's very easy to like make a big announcement and be like, I'm gonna go and do this, right? And I was in a cabin during COVID's initial quarantine. I went up for a month and stayed in Blue Ridge. And I was sitting there and went, all right, so like, how the hell do I do this? And I bought an online course and started watching the videos. And I think there were 190 lessons in this. 100. And I mean, I bought the thing, spent a few $100, not that expensive, spent a few $100 and went, what is this? Right? I mean, I was so frustrated. But you start chipping away at it. And you start chipping away at it, and you look and you go, all right, well, like I'll do 3 a day. They're quick. They're 5-10 minutes. They're not a big deal. And you start like, all right, well, I'll do 5, maybe 10 a day. Right. And all of a sudden, in a few weeks, you're like, oh, okay, I'm halfway through it. Now let me go and kind of go to the next step. And from the day I started flying to the day I had my pilot's license was 4 weeks. Wow. And then I got my instrument rating, which is as much work as getting your pilot's license. It's the same thing basically all over again, which allows you to fly in, low visibility, weather conditions, and it's kind of important because otherwise, you are at risk for a, Kobe Bryant situation. But went and did my full instrument license, and then I had an instructor through that changed my life. And I had come in, and when I had gone to the flight school, everyone was like, these flight instructors, they're young people, trying to go to the airlines. Like, oh, you're flying with Jay. You're flying with Jay. I said, who the hell is Jay? Why do I even care? And as I started flying with this guy, Jay, over and over again, I noticed that he has a different Rolex every single time. And I'm kind of confused. I'm thinking like, what's going on? And we hopped into my car at the time. I was driving a Bentley, and he said, how do you like the Bentley? I'm thinking about buying one for me and my wife. And I'm like, Jay, pause. Like 1 second. I know you guys make $40 an hour. Like, what's the story here? And he goes, oh, no. This is my side hustle. I mean, I run a multi-billion-dollar division of Cognizant. Right. This is what I do for fun. Wow. I'm also a skydive instructor. I'm a scuba instructor. I'm a marathon runner. I'm a competitive, I'm a master fly fisherman. I'm a competitive, skeet shooter. Whole.
I do things.
Bunch of he does things.
Collecting masteries.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he's an aerobatics pilot. He also has his ATP, meaning he can go fly for the airlines if he wanted to. He never, he always jokes, he's like, they can't afford me. And they can't. But that's not the point. He wanted to go out and pursue it and accomplish it. And Jay really changed my life because I had never met anybody like this. And, as soon as I got my pilot's license, he was like, let's go get your instrument. And then after that, he's like, all right, I'm not your instructor anymore. Now I'm just your friend. And we're going to go and do aerobatics. And we went to Alabama multiple times to go, it's one thing to fly a plane right side up. It's a whole other thing to fly it upside down. And do loops and spins because it's like, look, do you actually want to be a good pilot or you want to be a regular pilot? And I'm like, regular is fine. But he's like, nope, we're going to push it. We're going to push the throttle, and that's what we're going to do. And time again, we went out there, and he's like, great, now it's time to start jumping. And went out to Arizona and, jump after jump after jump after jump, getting my skydiver's license. And I'm not a skydiver, and I'm sure as hell not a runner. And I definitely don't want to fly upside down, okay, sideways, anything in between. But what Jay really proved to me was that, all of these things you don't like because you're unfamiliar with them and because you're not accustomed to it and you don't think of yourself as being the type of person to do this, that, and the other. And the difference between the person who is and the type of person who isn't is just what they've decided for themselves. And the first, 10, 12 flights that I had getting my pilot's license, I hated it every single time. And it was Jay there being like, you'll feel better next time. And I'm like, Jay, I feel so sick. I hate this. I'm overwhelmed. Like, I really don't think this is for me. And by, hour 20, I was like, all right, I think I'm okay now. And by hour 40, I'm like, I kind of like this. And, by my 60th hour, which I have hundreds of flight hours now in the past 10 months, but by my 60th hour, I'm like sitting on the ground waiting to get back in the sky. And that's really what changed my life. And I got into running. And, the first mile is brutal, but then you do it the next day and it's still brutal. But by day 10, it's a little better. And then, through training, I was running 6 to 8 miles a day. And I'm like a big boy.
What are you training for?
Marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
I am too. No, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
But I'm a fat kid. All right. 3 years ago, I was 300 pounds, or 4 years ago at this point. But
Get the fuck out.
Yeah, I was 300 pounds. I got pictures, bro. I was a pant size 48. That's 4 feet around.
Wow. When did you start that journey? Like, was that in tandem with your businesses?
Yeah, to some degree. To some degree. I mean, to be honest with you, that one was, spending like a lot of years in a relationship. We were both really complacent, and by the time that ended, I realized like I really got in shape, and that I really got to get in shape, and it didn't help that I was like dating a competitive CrossFit athlete
Oh, wow.
as my kind of jump off there. So yeah, she really.
I wonder how much
kicked
of
my
that was
ass.
like a subconscious, like you identified her as being your girlfriend because you knew you wanted to lose that weight.
She was very hot. That helped.
Yeah,
too.
well, yeah, of course that would help.
but what the hell she was doing with me, I don't really know. But yeah, she didn't think twice about it. She said, "We're getting you fit." And what I realized too, though, because I had a situation when I was raising venture capital in the previous company where a VC kind of was like, "You're in some pretty poor shape," and I was like, "Well, work, and that's because I'm so dedicated to the company, and that's why you should invest in this." And he said something, and this guy was brutal. I still remember his name. I won't say it, but he was like, if you don't have the self-discipline to stop eating cheeseburgers, what makes you think that I should be giving you money?
Shit. And what did you say?
And I kind of looked at him and went, I stuttered, and that was it, man. Needless to say, he didn't write me a check.
Because I have a cheesburger company. Oh, you obviously make good burgers.
Yeah, I wasn't repping that. But he made a point. Like, if I didn't have the focus and drive to keep my body in a position to support my mind, how was I ever going to perform at a high level?
I like that. That's cool.
And that's a really important thing that people overlook. Your health, as it pertains to your ability to win in business and from a mental health perspective, is critical because you all know this whole thing is miserable. Like, there are a lot of people, and I really, they kind of make me like itch. And there are a lot of people who really kind of preach the gospel of entrepreneurship. I'm not that person. I used to be. I'll be honest with you. I used to be. In fact, I used to not understand why anyone didn't want to own their own business. But with enough years and some maturity in realizing the kind of brutality and uncertainty and misery that's down this path, you have to be a very unique breed of person to do it. And granted, like, the spoils are there, but I mean, look, I'm 26 years old. My hairline is receding. I've put my body through hell and back, and the consequences of that I won't even face for decades. But there will come a reckoning point. And I've come to terms with that. But entrepreneurs die young. It's just a statement of fact, right? There's higher incidences of heart attack, of cancer, of things like that. And I don't want to get too dark. Don't get me wrong, but it's a very difficult life. And so what I'm much more concerned with, kind of as you said, is like, it's not necessarily about entrepreneurship. It's about excellence, right? And that's what I really learned from Jay in this past year of, I put all my energy in trying to win at something in business. But now it's shifted a little bit because there are a lot of other incredibly valuable pursuits in life to excel at. And, you had said something that I disagree with a little bit. It's like, you said you don't have to be wildly successful. And I think what I would just add to that, you don't have to be wildly financially successful.
Sure.
But if you're spending your life coming home, simply to sit on your couch day in and day out to eat Cheetos and watch Netflix, that's fine. That's your choice. I'm not in a position to strip you of that right. But your life is short. You and I mean, all of us, relatively speaking, we're going to be dead soon. And I don't know what heaven or hell are like, but I do know that there's an incredible amount of heaven here on earth.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole point of, whatever it is that you're pursuing. I don't care if you love to knit some beautiful stuff, right? Like, really focus in on that and get good at it, right? And care about it and be passionate about it, because otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? To be good at nothing?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I think that entrepreneurship in a previous generation was stigmatized as the person who works young and works and then, dies and lives in the unhealthy life. And you can't have financial success and happiness at the same time. And I think we're in a new age where I think there's a duality to everything. It's one of the laws of the universe. And in the way I'm using it right now, it's that information. Spreading of information has its good and has its bad, but it's things like this, conversations like this, other kind of conversations where you can see you can achieve massive success, however you define it, be it financially, be it physically, but also achieve success mentally, happiness, and have that equilibrium. We call our audience hippie hustlers because it's the mixture of motivation and mindfulness, or, divinity and discipline. And and so it's like it's a new age, it's a new era, and I think that people need to hear what you're saying because you've been through the trenches in business, you've been through the peaks and the valleys, the highs and the lows. You've been at a more obese. You were obese, it's fair to say,
Sure.
And now you're healthy, getting ready for a marathon. And correct me if I'm wrong, but from the energy I'm feeling, you seem to be very happy and very at peace with yourself.
Sure.
So let me ask you, what kind of mindset things do you practice? Do you have a routine? If you don't have one, I don't want you to give advice of things that you're not disciplined or practice every day. But are there things that you actually do every day to maintain mind, body, spirit alignment?
Yeah. So this is sort of funny because I always looked at, some of these guys, especially like a David Goggins, right? Who are incredibly disciplined, incredibly so, right? Militant about it, and never thought that I would ever, I kind of said like stoop to that level, right? Like I want to love my life and enjoy it and let it flow and be free.
Right.
You want to embrace that pain is what you want to do.
Uh-huh. And that has been like my biggest discovery. I'll tell you what, more than anything else, especially in the past 6 months, what I've realized is that discipline brings freedom. And I've read that before, and I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world because no, without discipline, I can go and snap my fingers and go and enjoy, run around. Every minute of my day is accounted for. You can go look. I'll pull up my phone right now. There is a calendar event called sleep.
Yeah.
Okay? It's on my calendar. And I get notified an hour before it begins. And, if you look in my calendar, I'm pulling it out right now. Y'all can't see it, but there it says sleep right there. Nightly routine begins at 12:15. And at 1 a.m. is sleep, right? And then it begins, there's my workout, there's my shower. I literally have at 9:45 a.m. eat something delicious. And it just goes on from there. The amount of power, stability, and freedom, and kind of happiness that I've gotten from going in the complete opposite direction, where I have been militant about my schedule and have kept myself so rigid, has enabled me to focus in and be a lot more in tune with what I'm doing at any given point because I know where I'm supposed to be. It's already pre-thought out. I know where I'm supposed to be. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know everything is handled. I know moment by moment how my day is going to get played out. I know there are people listening right now that don't think it's terrible, but I was one of those people. Right? And then there's a certain point where life becomes so chaotic and so unpredictable that if you can manage the predictable components, the unpredictable becomes kind of irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
Things pop up and you're like, oh, that's fine. No big deal, right? I have everything else.
There's something to be said for, we know for a fucking fact, life is going to push you. It's going to push you and it's going to do it unexpectedly. And we live in it can be a very beautiful world. It can also be a very harsh world. And if you're not steeling yourself up and preparing yourself, then when you get pushed, you're going to fall over or topple or crumple. But when you're hardening yourself, when you're doing those hard things, when you're engaging in discipline and holding yourself accountable, then when life gives you something unexpected, you're prepared, you're fortified. It's one of the coolest things or benefits. I don't think the running has anything to do with my body. I think it has everything to do with my brain. Yeah. You talk about Goggins, you go somewhere, you go to They Don't Know Me Sun mode or whatever that extra gear is past where you thought was possible. And we've been talking a lot about this idea of flow versus hyper focus. And when you're first engaging in something new that you don't know, something new and challenging, it might require that hyper focus. For me, it was snowboarding recently. It was way out of my comfort level, but now I'm locked in, I'm engaged. Next time you face, or maybe it's not the very next time, but at some point you do that enough, that flow state is the culmination of all your past hyper focuses blending into one moment where time where you perceive time differently, at least.
Ben Askren was talking about that on a podcast. Do you know who Ben Askren is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's getting ready for the Jake Paul fight. So he's doing a lot of press right now, or the Jake Paul massacre, however
Team
it's going.
Askren,
Yeah.
for sure.
Ryan Garcia, the premier boxer, I think he's like 21 years old, just crushing it right now. He asked him, he said, how do you prepare yourself on the way to the ring? And he's like, I honestly just take myself out of it. I'm not thinking about strategy. I'm not thinking about anything. I take myself out of it on my walk to the ring, because if I'm not prepared for the fight the hour before the fight, then I'm not prepared for the fight.
Yeah.
So there's no point thinking about what's my chess move going to be on the way to the ring. You should have already known that. Kobe Bryant says confidence comes from practice. You can walk on the court confidently and know you're going to win every time if you're the first one in the gym and last one out every single day.
Meanwhile, you have Allen Iverson shitting on practice, but you know how many rings he has?
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Exactly.
that sort of tells you everything you need to know. And you know, I think the most important thing is really, it's a question of like how interested, and I say this very casually, but I do it intentionally. Just how bad do you want to win, right? That's really all there is to it. And you know, if you don't want to win that bad, then that's fine, right? Like, I'm not here to encourage you to live your life any differently if you don't want to win that badly.
Well, and sometimes financial success does mean, especially in the early stages, does mean sacrifice. And some people want that time, or they want the family, or whatever number of things. You're right in that success isn't necessarily financial. Success can be measured a number of different ways.
Yeah, you want to go be a mother, be the best mother there ever was. That's fine. Don't want to go be a mother and be a shitty mother.
Yeah.
Because I will judge you for that one. Like, you know, but that's all there really is to it. And that fundamental piece is really all we're talking about today, right? Excellence. You know, that focus and excellence in and of itself is a muscle, and one that you can build.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fail to understand that. You know, it does not come natural. Like, guys, it's just so easy. I mean, go look up like bodybuilder before and after pictures. I mean, you have scrawny little kids that become monsters, right? It's not like, you know, for most of them, you don't look at them at 14 years old and you're like, man, that dude was huge then and he's huge now. Like, that's not how it works, right? It's these tiny little incremental steps. And then all of a sudden, you know, you have a podcast, there are people who are very successful, and it seems like such a distant reality when there's 365 days out of the year. I'm not going to waste anybody's time with like a 1% a day type of thing. But like, look, 365 days a year, and you got 50, 60 decent years in your life where you can do something useful.
It goes back to the idea of living with purpose, creating a life by design, and running life on your terms rather than, you know, the average life on default. One thing I want to touch on is the media, Instagram, social, whatever, is going to glorify all the best parts, all the rewards of entrepreneurship. And very rarely do the struggles get talked about. I want to dig into relationships. Yeah. 7 years, same girl holding it down.
Not anymore.
Getting
obviously.
right.
Yeah.
Buying you Chipotle when you're on your last dollar. And where are you at now, and how has your view on relationships changed as you've grown, matured, gotten into early adulthood? What does that look like?
Wow. We went there, huh?
Had to.
Had to do it. Okay. So, yeah, I was in a very long relationship, and it ended before I had really kind of made it. Not to say that I've made it now, but, you know, she wasn't part of kind of this chapter of my life, and had a few different relationships that were all, you know, about a year or so. I changed in terms of what I was looking for and who I wanted as a partner. And it's oscillated at different places. There was a point in my life when I really thought, like, I just wanted a trophy wife, right? And now, more than ever, I've realized that, like, this path is incredibly lonely, right? And while I don't know if I necessarily need, like, an equivalent, like, go-getter entrepreneur, I wouldn't mind. That'd be great.
It's also rare.
Oh, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. But excellence is critical. And that's the whole point. Like, I'm fine. I'm happy with an artist, but, like, I hope she really cares about her craft and is passionate about pursuing what she wants to do, so that I can go and learn something about painting and I can teach her something about business. That's fine. But I am so disinterested in being with anybody who doesn't wake up with a passion and a fury for life, or who makes excuses, for God's sake. There are plenty of excuses that I can make surrounding trauma and, a variety of things that just don't play a role right now. And I will say too that a good therapist helps. For those of you listening, it is not unbecoming of you to go and get a therapist and have somebody talk to, because the road is lonely, your past is difficult, and coming to terms with that will empower you. I mean, the greatest investment I've ever made, the highest ROI period, is in a therapist.
We say it all the time. Even Olympic athletes have coaches.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no difference.
Yeah, it was funny, and we'll touch back on the relationship thing. But I remember once my therapist said, "Would you be okay coming twice next week?" I said, "Yeah, why wouldn't I be okay with it?" She's like, "Well, patients can get really freaked out by that." I said, "Why would they get freaked out? For me, if I was working out with a trainer in the gym and he was like, 'Hey bro, let's work out twice next week,' I wouldn't
Just
be
leveled up.
yeah, I wouldn't think oh, you're saying I'm weak? No, I would think, all right, great. Let's dive into this and work twice as hard to conquer what we're facing. If this is an important thing, let's do it." I look at a therapist the same way, but
Real quick, I think that comes into the entrepreneur archetype, though. That's looking at something, that for a lot of people, 2 sessions a week is foreign. But for you, you're like, I need 3 to 4, or maybe not I need, but
right now.
I want to maximize my ROI, and I'm not scared to do whatever it takes to get there.
That's it.
I think that's a fascinating point.
Yeah, and a lot of people also think that's not a manly thing to do or whatever. Man, shut up. Here's the thing: mental health, especially men, has been stigmatized for God knows how long, and as a result, we have so many problems from a cultural perspective with this overly macho kind of mentality or need to be pent up. And it's just limiting. Forget even, toxic. Forget that. It's just limiting and painful, right? To be in a position where you think at every single point the experiences that you've gone through is your cross to carry exclusively without any help from experts who are professionals in this stuff. It's kind of like not knowing how to go to the gym and being like, now get in shape. You could figure it out, but it doesn't mean you should. What you should do is hire a professional who knows way better than you how your muscles work and how all of this ties together, and enlist their help to make you stronger. It's the same thing with your brain, right? And then that's kind of this
I like it because survival of the fittest isn't survival of the fittest. It's survival of the fittest, the most adaptable, who can adapt to any and all of life's situations, curveballs, areas.
Well, we're not all born with resources, but that doesn't stop us from becoming resourceful. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
Hell
that's
yeah.
the whole point.
I love that.
I mean, look, I think one of the most powerful moves that I remember is when Bezos was going through all that stuff with the National Enquirer, right? And I mean, you have to think mental fitness, right? That was an incredible public display of mental fitness, where the man said, "All right, they're trying to blackmail me. There's this, incredibly difficult situation, and what I'm going to do is actually go and release my own nudes and kind of outmaneuver them at each and every direction." And here's the point, y'all: you can't do anything tactically or wisely. Wisely is probably even the better word to use when you are being emotionally irrational.
Yeah.
Right? Emotions are inherently irrational. And sometimes that's good. That's fine, right? Love is a powerful emotion.
Human.
And it's human, right? And if love was irrational, it would be much more difficult to justify a lot of the things we do, okay? Because there's a lot of flowers I've bought and trips that I've taken that I should not have gone on. They were not rational. But you know what? I'm glad that they happened and were parts of my life, because that's what innately makes me a human and not a robot. But in a lot of other facets of our life, we have to be really tactical. It is a game of chess. We have to outthink and say, how do we make the smartest decision for myself, for my employees, for my future, for my life, my family, whatever. And anxiety is the enemy of that, right? Depression is the enemy of that. And that kind of stress needs to be managed effectively. And that empowers you to look at it, because in a game of chess, you're not going to go and cry. You're going to think all right, what's the smartest play I can make here? But life, in a lot of ways, is like that game of chess, except a lot of it makes us want to cry, right? And whether you do or don't, internally somewhere, your thinking starts to get warped. And you have poor decisions that are made. And without putting that emphasis on controlling your mental health diligently and consistently, you are losing out on your own ability to make the best decisions for yourself. Period.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm single, if anybody's listening. Jewish,
A good Jewish boy, a good
Jewish
single
boy.
Jewish boy.
Hey,
You know,
member of the tribe.
not once actually, I've gotten a few messages from like PupSocks customers like, "Hi, I found your Facebook profile," and you know, it's like Rebecca Rosenblum or something.
Bro, I feel like I
And
saw that on
Date
your
my
story
daughter.
right when I started following. Did you put it on
probably-
your Instagram
I
story?
did. I posted a screenshot of it. I posted a screenshot.
By
of
the
it.
way, I'm not going to be low key about it.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. This like Jewish mother was like offering her daughter, a sacrifice. She was like, here is a picture of her. She would love to, go out with you. She's actually decently cute.
We're gonna form a strong family alliance between my
Yeah,
family and yours.
our tribes
Come
will
over
get
for
together.
Shabbat.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. But it has certainly made things difficult, and it's isolating, and especially too like
What has being single?
No, like entrepreneurship and having some success too. Like, let me tell you this: it is super helpful to have the trappings of success if your sole objective is to get laid.
Yeah,
You
or
could-
trophy wife, or
Yeah. Well, yeah. But if you're looking for real connection, it makes it that much harder, right? Which you gain on one end, you lose on the other.
Yeah.
If not, maybe even more. And your existence in and of itself becomes less relatable. It's just part of it. And there are fewer people who understand kind of those trials and tribulations of, what does it look like to leave home at 7 a.m. and come back the next day at 8 p.m. smelling like shit, not showered, having been on the floor, managing and leading a team in a moment of crisis.
Do you think that the duality to being less relatable comes more inspirational, more motivational, more awe-inspiring? Because Jordan, the reason I ask, and unless you want to jump in, but the reason I ask is there's a psychologist that we both, I'm sure you've heard of him, Jordan Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, kind of leading the pack is being able to walk a very, very fine line between the familiar and the unfamiliar. So it makes me think.
order and chaos.
Right. Yeah. So if you want to be one who can go into chaos and create order, there's a fine line. And it just makes me think, that quote came to mind when you mentioned being less relatable. And I was like, okay, then what's the duality to that?
Yeah, but look, I'm not gonna go sit around and give myself a pat on the head and call myself inspiring. I think that it certainly enables you to empower other people and to go and make order out of that chaos. And that distance comes with rewards. But and I'm not willing to say it's lonely at the top. I have an incredible number of groups of friends, and I'm very fortunate in that respect. But when you talk about the intimacy of romance, that's a different story. And that's where I've struggled, because in the relationships that I've been in, there isn't that level of understanding of truly what it not even takes now, but has taken to get here.
Yeah.
I dated a girl for about a year, and she was an incredibly gentle, soft, kind person, right? She really couldn't understand when I'm out playing war games in business, trying to go and, defend this against that. And, our competitors are copying us and this, that, and the other. And the world that we exist in isn't all kumbaya. It's just not.
No.
Right. And
I think we have to desensitize ourselves to the horrors that go on way more often than pretend that it's kumbaya.
Yeah, in fact, my therapist even said once, she was like, so what's going on this week? I'm like, it's just been a tough week. I had a mediation, then my biggest investor pulled out, and then also I had this massive fight in my factory, and we lost power because of this storm, and there's this massive shipping crisis, so our inventory didn't come in, so it's just been a long. And she sat there and she was like, what the hell, man? But that's not even a bad week. That's just a week.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that we face week in, week out in trying to grow 100% every year. And that can be a very difficult thing to communicate, because it is tough.
Thanks for being vulnerable.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. What else do you like to do and focus on other than business and flying planes? You read something in I guess you guys had exchanged texts earlier about points you may have wanted to talk about. What was the words that you
Reducing recidivism and incarceration in the penal system.
Yeah.
Activism?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So a few different things. One, there's a nonprofit called the Common Good, and so I funded their most recent.
is that
annual
local
budget.
in Atlanta?
Yeah,
Awesome.
and they work with and mentor guys who have recently come out of prison. So exclusively felons, people who are serving multi-year or even decade terms. And I not only participated in just kind of underwriting the program, but also went and became a mentor there, which was super cool because the guy that I've been working with for about a year, he recently got out. This was 2 weeks ago. So we met for the first time. I drove way the hell out.
You were working with him while he was
Yeah,
in the
like we
penal-
were. They have this like FaceTime app, and it's called kind of appropriately called Getting Out. And so you can download this app, and you pay. It's like 25 cents a minute or whatever it is. And you can FaceTime. You can see them. They can see you. So he was trying to develop different business ideas to go and pursue as soon as he got out because we knew that was coming. And
hit the ground running.
yeah, he had been incarcerated previously for 17 years.
Wow.
And then he had gotten out for a few, and then he had a parole violation and went back for a little.
How old is he?
46, 47.
Oh wow.
Yeah, most of his life spent in jail. But dude's a hustler and have had so much fun working with him. It's been a very intensely rewarding and gratifying
What have you learned from
experience.
him?
One, kind of the fleeting nature of time.
Yeah.
Right? Like 17 years is entire career for a lot of people, right? I mean, 17 years people will spend in.
It's a child's life.
Yeah, think about that, right? I mean, and for him, that kind of was the case. He had like 1 year old, and he came out, and he had a man.
Wow.
Right? That's what his exact situation was. And in a lot of ways, the incredible privilege that we have, not being incarcerated and kind of not being targeted by the system. I mean, a lot of the situations.
Not worrying about being incarcerated.
Yeah, I got involved actually. Kind of summer of last year during all of the George Floyd protests when I started paying attention to these things and I started really trying to understand the extent of my own privilege, which my dad particularly, who's a Russian immigrant, denies having any privilege. But the truth is that that's bullshit. I get it. He came to this country with nothing and he worked a job and made some money and whatever. But ultimately, he is viewed in this society as very differently. Until he starts being an asshole to people, that's another story. But Russian Jews, man, they're not easy people. But he doesn't, he doesn't think twice about any of these things, and can't really understand it. But I mean, for me, growing up in this country, it's an entirely different situation, and the opportunities that I've been afforded, some of the leg up moments that I've had in my life don't necessarily happen for other people. Like when I was in Tallahassee, Florida selling cookies, I walked into a donut shop. I was 18 years old and I asked to rent their shop out. And I mean, they didn't think twice. They said, "How old are you?" I said, 21. And they said, "Great, we see you tonight." It was an Arab family and really lovely people. But if I was a young black kid, especially not one that had grown up with direct parental involvement, and my parents really taught me how to speak and be articulate and whatever else. But if I'm the son of a single mother who's working double shifts at Walmart, I may be incredibly entrepreneurial and I may have all the best intentions and I really may be a wonderful heart, but that doesn't mean I have the ability to necessarily communicate and jump in that. And I really may not know how to do that, or may not even know that I don't know how to do that, right? I have all the right intentions, but if I approached them differently, I can guarantee you they would not have said, "Yep, be here tonight. The shop is yours. How much do you pay?" I was paying them $30 a day, cash, every single night. I would give them $30 the next morning for the night before.
You just use their kitchen?
We didn't even sign a lease. I was baking cookies out of their kitchen, and it's just a different situation. What a massive leg up that was for me. I was in my apartment, and 3 weeks later, I had this whole donut shop that was closed at night, and they even added to their big lit up marquee sign eventually, "Cookies by the Cookie Man," and only about 2 months ago, almost 10 years now later, did they change it. So. I think about those things a lot. And in getting involved last year, I started to become acutely aware of how far that ran and the moments in my life that I've had where, I've been able to just like kind of almost like wink at police officers and be let off comically. So, I mean, like I once got pulled over speeding at 140 miles an hour when I was like 18 or 19 years old. And the cop was like, "You really should be more responsible." And that was it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Will do.
I said that probably is a good idea and didn't change anything. Like, those kinds of moments are stories that are somewhat exclusive to a single race in this country, period. And it's not the only one I have. I have more.
Sure. Yeah.
I've learned my lessons, boys. But in some ways, like I also haven't. I never had to, right? Like I've stopped doing these kinds of things. I just have more to lose now. But like I never was forced to. I kept making the same mistakes and kept kind of being like, "I'm so sorry," and that was it. You might as well thought I had like boobs or something. Like it was just like I it's a different world. And once I became aware of that, I really started thinking about like how do I get involved and how do I help? And how do I try to create opportunities for people who may have been, pushed in this system in a way that was unjust? And I've never said this publicly, but I recently had my own stint in the county jail.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I inadvertently had my gun that I legally own and carry concealed.
What are you carrying?
Glock 19.
Let's go.
And I happened to have it in my briefcase, which, normally I don't think twice about because I fly my own plane, but I was flying commercial. And so, when I went through TSA, I heard we need APD, and I'm kind of like, somebody's going to go to jail. I wonder who.
Oh my
it's
God.
Then you see your bag go to the side down the aisle you don't want it to go down.
It still didn't register because sometimes they do that and they're like, "Oh, you forgot your cologne. It's over 3 ounces,
Yeah.
whatever." Didn't think anything of it. And then as soon as they say, "Do you have a gun in here?"
Oh, you mean that gun?
Yeah, that's not mine. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's crazy.
Yep. But what I'll tell you too is going down to Clayton County Jail.
Oh, and that's one you don't want to end up at.
It's 100% one you don't want to end up in.
Yeah.
It is a scary place. But what I'll tell you is I've heard a lot of jail stories, and you kind of take them with a grain of salt. Like, yeah, okay, well, it's, from somebody who's like consistently in jail, and they talk about how like abusive it is, and you never really kind of put yourself there until you sit there. And you start to get exposed to how inmates are treated and how degrading it is when you become one of them. And, you expect like the officer like walks up and like, all right, this is, like, I'm used to respecting police officers. This guy walks up and it's like, "Listen here, motherfucker." And you're like, "What? I thought I'm innocent till proven
Listen
guilty."
here, motherfucker. I'm going to be out in 48 hours. When I am, I'm going to be better off than you are. Fuck your entire life.
But that's not even the point. Like, to think that most of the guys that were in that, it was me and 13 other guys like went in at the same time. So we were all kind of there in Central, and we were going through booking. And I mean, the stories these guys have that I wouldn't have believed the day before that I'm now watching play out.
Yeah.
Right. Where, I mean, they have no problem beating the hell out of you. They don't think twice about it. And it's a for-profit prison. They have no problem keeping you there as long as they feel like keeping you there. And you're like, all right, I'm ready to post bail. Like, it's not ready.
Were you even, as somebody who pursues excellence and finds himself in challenging positions regularly, I mean, were you even worried for a second, or was there a calm confidence that I'm not supposed to be here?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, so when I first got into the airport jail, I very much was like, I'm fine. It's okay. I had been preparing to like get to work on my flight. So, I had a bunch of coffee. I'm like buzzed. I'm like ready to go. And the cop was like, man, we'll have to take you down to county and you'll bail out in 2 hours and you'll be fine. So, all right, no problem. We'll just catch a later flight. Like this will be one for the storybooks and it'll be okay. What I will say is, doing all of the things that I've done in my life, I really wasn't that worried. It also helps when you have bail money. That helps a lot. But, I mean, I was like, look, fine. If I'm here for the day, I'm here for the day. If I'm here until tomorrow, I'm here until tomorrow. But, like, I know I'm getting out. I know I'll be okay.
All hope is not lost.
Yeah. So all of the difficult things that we do everywhere else sort of prepares you for the unexpected difficult things to where you sort of shrug your shoulders. Like I was talking to a friend when I got out, and And he was like, man, that must have been so scary. And it's like, yes. I mean, what's going to happen?
But it's still interesting because you get that firsthand experience on the degrading police officer,
Yep.
on being what they consider, they have no idea who you are.
Yep.
They consider you a lower tier. You brought a gun on a plane. You might be a terrorist. Look at that big beard. They could be any number. You get that firsthand, oh, this really does suck.
Yep.
It's not fun.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole time you're like, I thought I was innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
And it's like, not in here.
Yeah.
Not, you're here, aren't you?
You thought.
How innocent are you if you're here?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but I thought, there's no good
Everybody
answer.
here is innocent, right?
Yeah, everybody's here. Everybody here is innocent. Yeah, but also at the same time, I mean, I got to have conversations with guys and understand their stories,
Right.
and then I kind of later went and found them online and through the like inmate profile. And I mean, the kind of stuff that they're in for is wild, because for most of them, I mean, not most of them, but there were guys in there that had gotten back on child support and as a result had their license suspended, and then their only crime ever was just driving the suspended license, and they're there, and it's like, I've been in here 9 times in let's say 14 years, because I have to get to work to make money to pay the child support, because if I can't drive, I can't go to work, right? And so once every 2 years, I get arrested driving with a suspended license. I serve my 60 days. They just give up that portion of their life.
Right.
They pop out 60 days later. They don't have a job. They start looking for a new one. They find a new one. They start driving to it. A year or two later, they get pulled over for some random reason, and once again back to jail.
Wow.
It's just the routine.
Yeah, and it becomes almost a ritual or a habit at that point.
Well,
It's
Zach, man, this has been awesome. I know you came in and said you didn't want to preach the entrepreneurial gospel, but I think what we call it is building a life by design, or turning chaos into order. And I think you've keenly been aware of chaos, whether it be internal or external, and created order out of it. Whether you're you're aware of your privilege and are able to help lesser privileged communities, or whether you've identified chaos internally, mentally, and sought out order through a therapist, or built businesses when you felt you weren't fulfilled and you went and did that and excelled at it. And I don't think that preaching the entrepreneurial gospel is something you need to do because you truly embody it and live it, and that's clear through many different elements and aspects of your life. So
You're really living it. You're practicing it.
you're really fucking living it. So I appreciate your vulnerability and the way you articulated your stories, and were able to come in here and talk about all that, man. And it's been a real pleasure to sit here and talk to you about this. Guys, for anyone watching, I don't know, this episode probably won't come out in time, but when you watch this episode, go ahead and search the YouTube channel for clips, because Zach Zelner is actually the lead speaker at our next event, Moving Like a Grandmaster Entrepreneur. That's happening in Roswell. We're going to be bringing back our Hustle Up events. You can look for clips for Zach Zelner. Clint's speaking at the next one too. Shout out Clint Crow.
There we go.
It's going to be stupid hype. Guys, you know where to find us at HSTLUP, www.hstlup.com. What's that quote you always say? It's like when talent fails to work hard.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
That's what's on my fucking spirit right now. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. Until next time, hustle up.